and you're set. So let's see what are the different facets that help us build an enterprise level application using Node.js. So as of today, there are close to 22,000 modules floating around, right? So I have picked a few that we used for our case study in Ness Technologies, right? So Express is a web development framework and a high performance middleware that lets you build web applications with ease. Connect is a middleware for Node that lets you do a whole bunch of activities like session management, error handler, basic auth, and a lot more. Passport is a very interesting authentication middleware, basically, for your security, and it is built on a provider model. So it supports a single sign-on, OAuth for Twitter, Facebook, and so on. So what is an advantage with this? Let's say you have a internal application, and you have this application supported on, say, a password from your local DB, or let's say it's supported, of an LDAP, right? So you decide that you want to, tag this to the social world, right? So it's just few lines of code changes, and you have your passport module integrated to either the Twitter or Facebook. So it's a very good, a module, to basically productize your application, right? So Restler is a HTTP client library for Node.js. So you have REST services. You can use this to connect to it and get your data. Mongoose is an elegant MongoDB object modeling for Node.js. Jade is designed primarily for server-side templating in Node.js. So it helps you develop the UI with an object-oriented approach. AMQP is an advanced messaging queue protocol and supports the publish-subscribe model. So if your application has requirements to work off queues like ZeroMQ or RabbitMQ, your life would be made a lot easy by using AMQP. Socket.io, we just saw an example of Socket.io, a simple chat application. So it helps you create real-time apps with ease, right, across browsers and mobile devices. So this is about the development. So let's look at the debugging. Log4j. So those of you from Java background would know what is Log4j. So you have the entire capability available using Log4j as well. You can set thresholds, choose your appenders, and do the whole bunch of stuff just as you did in Log4j. Node inspector lets you to debug. So you can step through your code, add breakpoints, inspect the variables, object properties, or edit and see what the value reflects to, and so on. Onion logging is simple and fast JSON logging library. So something like Log4j, but the output is different, so you can tag it to your different tools for analysis and so on. Right? So one of the most important things that we see is the continuous integration, continuous inspection, and continuous deployment, right? So this is definitely possible with Node.js. So Grunt is essentially a task runner, and it has a whole suite of plugins under its umbrella. So it lets you to minify JavaScript, CSS, HTML, uglify them, unit testing using Node Unit, Node Mock, and as well as super test. So if you have multiple routes in your application, you can as well test the route using super test. You've got linting ability, right? So you can automate the whole flow. So we will look at an example over here on Grunt, right? So as you can see, on my top left, you have a folder called this, and below them you have right now the concatenated file and the files and CSS and JavaScript files available. So I'm just going to be clearing this off. So let's use grunt clean. So as you can see, the files that were created are removed. So I'm going to run my grunt task now, and you would see the concatenated versions and minified versions of the file available here. Let me also show you the linting ability. So let's say I wanted to run the lint before I concatenated my file. So I would type in grunt.js hint before cat. Right, so you see that it's done without errors. So after concat, I have clubbed in a few third-party libraries as well to show you the output after concat. Some errors introduced. Right, so it would give you line-wise precise details on where the code is basically violated. So grunt. So let's also now look at running unit test cases, right? Grunt node unit. I have a few test cases run, so you can see the output as well for them. So what grunt lets you do is you can automate this whole stuff, right? So you could be you have a need, just like in our project where you have a JavaScript, multiple JavaScripts, and you need an aggregated form of this, and you need this to be available on the development server after every build. The entire 9 yards is available using Node.js. So you could hook it up with Jenkins and have the code quality output through Sonar. So the entire 9 yards is supported, right? So let's move on. So scaling and monitoring, right? Like I said earlier, Nginx is a commodity hardware solution to help you scale Node.js apps, right? So Nodejitsu and Heroku are basically platform as a service that lets you host your Node.js apps on the cloud. Now, Strong Loop is from StrongOps and is a product that lets you do something like what Splunk does today. It lets you do performance monitoring. NodeTime lets you do performance analytics on your Node.js application. So Node.js is essentially single-threaded. So let's say you run into an issue where your app crashes due to an uncaught exception, right? Forover lets you to essentially bring back your node process, right? And NSSM lets you configure the Node.js app as a Windows service. So this is an example using NodeTime. So NodeTime gives you a whole bunch of features. So as you can see, you can capture the process of over a CPU time. You can see the process for CPU usage. You can see the file system for an average response, and you can inspect the objects within them. You can do the CPU profilers. So this was run over a period of 10 seconds, right? So then you can set alerts to trigger based on the available memory and so on your system. So let's look at